confidence to pull it off. Morton calls good game. Unbelievable. Sergio Ramos wins! First ever CRL World Champion! Team Liquid is going to be your champion! Mugi 2021! He's done it! World Champion! The Clash Royale League starts now!
3 players look to make their return to World Finals, while 3 others look to make it for the very first time, and that will be decided right here today on day 2 for your July Clash Royale League monthly finals. Hello and welcome. I am Rich Slayton, joined by Andrew Guy and Joshua AC Sharon. Well, we will crown a golden ticket winner, give out a ton of points, and take one step closer to our World Finals. Josh, Andrew, very excited for today. And Josh, I know you are very pumped to see some of these matches.
I mean, who do we still have left? We have Morton, Igor, Sosa. I mean, a lot of these guys are players that only this year we're kind of finding out about, and, you know, we're actually seeing if they're real. So this is a huge month to see who's actually real and who's ready to be a champion and who might actually be a pretender.
Andrew, speaking of real, does it get much more real than 4 times to World Finals for Morton? Going for a record 5th time at World Finals may be secured today.
I know, I was already thinking about, you know, at the end of the day, we probably, hopefully, will get an interview, and then there's a couple players out there that won't speak to us, I know, but there's a couple players that will, one of them being Morton, and I was just thinking how cool it would be to be able to interview him and, hey, another World Finals in your pocket, man. How does it feel? But then you look at someone like Arden, you look at someone like Faust, the runs that they've been on yesterday going into today. I am so excited to see who's going to hoist that golden ticket at the end of the day. And of course, to get there, how did we get here, right? Well, let's talk about our format. Let's talk about our roadmap. How do you get to the CRL monthly final? Well, you got to get in the top 1,000 on that leaderboard. You know, make it to that ultimate competitor, ultimate challenge, get that purple little badge. Monthly qualifier, it's a 2-day competition, right? Top 8 move-ons, double elimination. You move on to today. And of course, there's going to be 16 players at World Finals, which is just a few months away. But once you get to the monthly final, how does that work? Well, 8 players, best of 3, dual mode. 4 unique decks. They got to be pre-made before you go in. These are pre-made duels, no repeated cards. And of course, we got a couple players with a life to give today, but most people are feeling a single elimination situation coming your way.
And Josh, of course, they are playing not just for World Finals, but we got some money on the line.
That's right, money, money, money. That's the name of the game, really. First place is gonna walk away with $16,000, but not just $16,000. Also a golden ticket that's gonna shoot them into the World Finals, and that's just more money in their pocket. Second place walking away with 10K, 7 and 4 to third and fourth, and you know. Even if you did finish yesterday and you weren't able to walk away with any set victories, you still got a nice little $1,000. That's still a good chunk of change.
A solid chunk of change indeed, Andrew, as we go take a look at our bracket. We started off with 8, 2 down already. Ruben and Dark Angel ending early. And it was some nice performances early on. Igor taking down Morton. Arden Toas, though, the guy you've been keeping your eye on, making a fairly deep run today into our upper bracket.
I mean, really impressive stuff, taking down back-to-back world champions in his opening 2 sets. He goes 2-0 against Ruben, then goes 2-1 against Igor, and then Faust on the other side of it, talking about one of our eliminated competitors, kind of showed that him and Dark Angel are in at least different leagues as of yesterday. Then he runs into Ta, an old monthly finals winner, not able to keep up with Faust. So our 2 young bucks are up at the top, and then down, like you're saying, at the bottom, we got some of the most notorious names in all of Clash Royale. Morton and Igor still hanging on by a thread. Sosa and Ta looking to make their World Finals berth. So much going on today. Obviously, we talked about Muhammad Light not being here, but that's okay because we get a real new golden ticket winner today. The first time we've been able to do it this year since March, technically, because February, no one had won one yet, so Mo gets his first one. And then now we're in a situation where we have 6 competitors that are all vying, dying, competing to get that golden ticket. But dude, yesterday, Rich, you were talking so much about the leaderboard, and that is a really, really exciting conversation because the points are actually almost more important than the golden ticket. Obviously, the golden ticket is like Josh said, it's your one free pass to World Finals, but this points conversation is getting really heated up.
Well, you do have 3 of the players here in our monthly final in Morten, Faust, and Sosa. The top 3 players on that points leaderboard in that position to make it to World Finals. So they're in a pretty good spot. Then you have guys like Arden Toas who are chasing up on that point, or on Sosa, I mean, who are chasing up that points leaderboard, trying to find a spot. But then there's another factor here that makes today's golden ticket even more important. With the way World Finals seeding works, our golden ticket winners are all one part of the bracket, which means today's golden final ticket winner, we have to bring up Mo here, is guaranteed to be on the opposite side of the bracket from Mohamed Light, whereas if you make it on points, you might end up being on the same side of the bracket as the Pharaoh. So that's a pretty big stakes here. And Josh, a World Finals berth is great either way, but you have to imagine that all of them would be very happy to find themselves as far away from Mohamed Light as possible.
Yeah, you want to do whatever you can to avoid it, and I mean, especially if that just means that you walk away with a golden ticket today. So it's a nice little 2-for-1 right there. I mean, really, especially you can get nervous playing online against Mo, but you can still play fairly well. He's talked a lot about nerves. I mean, nerves for his opponents. But when you go on stage and you have to look Mohamed Light in the eyes as he's smiling and giggling because you just made 2 misplays, and that 2 misplays, you've already lost the set, that's too much for you, and you want to be on the opposite end.
Andrew, speaking of nerves, I want to know if you're nervous as we go into our next segment, the caster predictions, because your title right now is on the line. Josh and I are both ahead of you. And take a look at this. You once again picked against myself and Josh, so you are really kind of throwing caution to the wind.
Well, what's interesting about this is, it's pretty early morning here, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get my predictions in first. We end up going pretty much straight down the line. Our only coin toss is on probably the hardest match to decide here in Arden and Faust, because both of them were so exceptional yesterday. But, even though I picked Faust to be my dark horse winner for a golden ticket, so I feel like I'm going against myself here, Arden really, really impressed me. And I think it's mainly because of who he was playing up against. But then you also talk about, the Ruben that we saw yesterday wasn't really, the full form of Ruben. Igor, though, I will say, was playing really, really clean Clash. So that's one of the reasons I think I got to go to Arden. Not only did he bring the heat like Faust did, but against the competition, AC talking about the names, even though they're not quite the world champion right now, I feel like you probably still have respect for names like Ruben and Igor when you see them on the other side of that King Tower.
Yeah, Josh, that's a big question for you there, right? I mean, Igor, people forget that he's not only a world champion, but made it to top 3 in 2021, our first season of CRL Solos. Didn't participate last year, and of course has been a little bit missing this year until the second half of this season. But I have to imagine that he's still someone that players queue up against and just go, oh, come on, can I please get somebody else?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a huge difference between a player who dominates because of macro and a player who dominates because of micro. And micro, it just feels so much worse. You know that whatever you're doing isn't gonna work out. Your Hog's not gonna reach the tower. They're not gonna miss that tornado. They're not gonna misplay ever. And so now that it feels like Igor's really starting to warm up and he's really starting to play well, I mean, as long as he gets his deck, as long as he gets his decks under control, he is easily top 3 in this competition, but he certainly could be number 1.
Well, we kick off today with a couple of elimination matches back-to-back, starting with a big one here. Morten, who maybe has secured enough points to guarantee himself World Finals. Of course, there's nothing settled as of yet. Up against Ta, a monthly final winner from 2021, who would love to get it done again here and make a trip to World Finals. Andrew, we talked about at top of show, Morten with a chance to have a record 5 World Finals appearances. And the question is, can he get one step closer right now?
I mean, I think so. I think this is actually a really, really good matchup for Morten. I mean, both these guys went 100% with Firecracker yesterday. I think I probably could have went 100% with Firecracker yesterday. She was just all over the place, dominating the board. Morten, in this situation, I think all the nerves are on top. First of all, we already know that ice is running through Morten's veins. He's been here 1,000 times. Content creation is his main focus. It has been for the last couple of years, but he did say at the end of 2022, he wanted to really focus and grind. Now, whether or not that's true in 2023 or not, I feel like the experience and just, I mean, yeah, the experience, the competitive experience, and the fact that he's been to World Finals so many times really gives him an edge here where Ta may be just a little bit more nervous.
All right, we're going to excuse Josh here, and Andrew and I are going to jump on in. And, you know, it's interesting. You talk about people running certain decks against certain players. Andrew, it feels like running minor wall breakers against Morten is just asking for trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that there's someone that is better or not, because there are, I mean, so many pros play with minor wall breakers these days, and they're all exceptional with it. But if you talk about just the reps, Morten has played this so many times on stream, on ladder, at the end of season, in competition. So yeah, definitely a ballsy choice here.
And that's going to be a King Tower activation. Morten controlling the Firecracker to prevent the Princess Tower damage, and does a nice job of it. Interesting, you know, you saw Ta predict the bomb tower with the miner, but didn't really get much out of it. It's one of those predictions that looks better than it actually gives you a result.
Yeah, I mean, at least he was able to kind of halt a lot of things, but I like where his head's at, right? It's showing that Ta is ready to play. He's ready to fight. Whereas yesterday, with a couple of our competitors, it felt like they were still kind of waking up as they were playing through their sets.
So King Tower is activated on both sides. No surprise in a Firecracker versus Firecracker matchup. Miner to the back, Ice Spirit. And interesting, you know, just controlling even the Ice Spirit damage right now is Morten.
And that's really important with this, because as quickly as that Firecracker damage stacks up, it feels like, you know, there's so many times in a game where you can just kind of keep your opponent within striking distance or outside of striking distance as a Firecracker gets killed by an Evoed Firecracker and a bomb tower is misplaced by Ta. And I don't know if it's nerves or not, because, again, buildings get misplaced all the time. But, Rich, that's the type of thing that usually speaks to your nerves.
Well, let's see if we can pull that for the booth. I didn't see if maybe the Mighty Miner bumped the Hog Rider to the outside as well. So it might have been a 1-2 punch, a little low in a placement and an advantage taken by Morten.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right there, man. I think that's exactly what might have happened, and that's something you got to think about as Ta. With how popular this deck is right now, those are the type of interactions that we kind of spoke about yesterday, where if you're just not grinding as much as you need to, you're not going to recognize that my opponent's going to go in for a Hog Mighty Miner push, and that Mighty Miner is going to body block.
Here we go, Hog to the right-hand side one more time. Bomb tower, you see, this time, I think that's the same placement, but this time, no body block, and Morten putting it together right now, 13-14 to a solid defense on the other side. Ta has to find something, but keep in mind, everybody watching at home, as you probably know, a Firecracker in Evo form can change a game on a dime. We've already seen it once in this game. Will we see it again the opposite direction as we go into sudden death?
Morten's run like a few different versions of Hog EQ Firecracker in qualifiers, and he's been basically lights out with it. At least as far as I can see here, he's gone 100% in qualifiers with any version of Hog EQ, whether it's guards, goblins, or skellies in that 2 elixir slot.
And happy to keep on playing over there and force the defensive expenditure for Ta. Wall breakers to the right-hand side. Bomb tower picks up. Minor Firecracker push to the left-hand lane. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, Andrew, as how important, there you go, just the bridge control is going to be against not just the Evo Firecrackers, but the regular ones as well.
Well, Morten's doing a really good job of just recognizing he's already won the game, right? So he gets a little bit of EQ cycle in on that opposite side. EQ cycle plus log is going to kill an Evoed Firecracker. Minor chip damage is all you have to worry about. Minor chip damage, regular logs, and regular Firecracker splash is the only thing that you can actually accept. So everything else just needs to be taken care of. You've got that 600 damage lead, just ride it out.
Eating quite a bit of minor damage, and there you go. See, going for the same move with the Mighty Miner this time. Hog might be able to escape for one shot, and it does. That's a huge one. Might have locked it down. You see a big breath from Ta with 45 seconds left.
Yeah, and an absolutely perfect, recovery with Firecracker, kite with Hog Rider, doesn't get another shot, is able to get another EQ cycle in, has the elixir for Bomb Tower. It's just sewn up. I mean, this goes back to all the way about what you said at the top of the of this game, which is, running Mortar against Igor is one thing. Mortar is such a popular win condition. But running minor wall breakers of any version against Morton is putting you in a spot to just kind of be, to quote my man Wesley Snipes, just, ice skating uphill. You're putting yourself in a bad spot.
And a good game number 1 win. Log out on both sides. Firecracker out on both sides. Let's see if someone goes to the Royal Giant next here in game number 2.
And I think that's exactly what you do, right? Because if you're Morton, I'd say that's what you do if you're either of them. You want to go with your 2 strongest in a row. So for Ta, since he's probably the underdog in this matchup, you go, all right, I'm going to go with the strongest Evo card in the game at the moment competitively so that I can try to get an edge on Morton. And if you're Morton, you just do the same thing. You go, he's probably going to run Firecracker, and then he's probably going to run Royal Giant. I'm better than him. I'll run it back-to-back. We'll mirror this out, and I'll win the set.
Lumberjack making a bit of a comeback on these Evo Royal Giants.
Yeah, AC talked a lot about, you and AC talked a good amount about yesterday how Lumberjack is just kind of the favorite over Royal Ghost these days. And even though that wasn't 100% true in our matches, it did seem like that was the overwhelming, statistic.
Little trends that happen as balance changes occur or new things are introduced. Lumberjack's been kind of on the wayside for a while. And here we go, Zappy's split for Ta. So playing a slower, more defensive variation. Morton looking for the big through push when it does happen.
Yeah, this is not a deck that Ta has run to 100% success, but he's run it a lot. So he's run it, I think, 6 times with an 83% win rate. It looks like the last couple cards are going to be Royal Giant and Fireball. It's his second most popular deck, and it's maybe his most played decks. It's pretty high up there in win rate for him. So we'll see. It's very predictable, but it's also strong, and you want to be able to take a game off Morton.
And so far, the Mother Witch doing a bulk of the work in conjunction with the Skeleton King on behalf of Ta. Minute left in regulation, and finally we see the first Royal Giant.
Mother Witch still, there's a lot of talk of Evos, but Mother Witch is still one of the most frustrating cards when she has good targets.
And we saw a lot of this yesterday. Wow. We saw a lot of this yesterday where one person goes RG behind King Tower, other person goes, okay, well, I'll Royal Giant at the bridge. But the question now is, with Morton in the faster cycle, is he prepared to get all the way back around and throw his evolved Royal Giant down, potentially into this right-hand lane?
I think he might actually go left-hand lane here, Rich. He's got so much good pressure on the right. There we go. If Toss spends more, although he did drop a Fish Boy, so now for Morton, he's got a great option to just kind of reset. I didn't think he expected to get that much damage on the right-hand side. He got the overspend on the right, and then he could have went Evo'd RG on the left, but then he goes, dude, I've got 800 HP remaining on the right. Let's go.
And there you go. You see the discipline of Morton here, going for the Zappies directly rather than trying to get some Zappies and the Mother Witch at the same time. Gets the damage for it. 515 on the right-hand side. Morton way out in the lead as we go into sudden death.
And this is very similar to what we saw in game number 1. Now, even though he has a great win condition, he has a good way to go, he doesn't have to go for the kill now. But since Ta is so back in Elixir, he's so down in Elixir, he can't get on offense. So Morton just gets to ride this wave to the end.
Look at the skeletons. I'm going to be pull replays. Let's pull that one as well. The skeletons played by Morton behind after the Lumberjack distracted the Fisherman did a lot to get more damage. 208
this
remaining.
This is a big push, Rich. This is huge.
That's not enough, and the Fisherman's distracted. That's the Fireball can't do it. He has to kill this right now, or Tom might steal this one back.
And his Phoenix puts in just enough work. Lumberjack has to come down. That Mother Witch in the back, though, is trouble. Morton cannot Fireball out. He needs like 3 more damage or whatever it is to Fireball out. Maybe 4. I can't remember if it's 204. Phoenix is at the bridge.
Yeah, it might be 207, and here we go, trying to push the opposite direction. So this could be a 1 HP situation, and Morton knows he does not want to experience that one. Needs to get the Fisherman out of the way. The Royal Giant going for it. Can he stun this RG? The Fireball in for Ta. Ta now in range.
That's it.
Evo RG down. Needs to break through right here. Fireball does it.
That's
Can
it.
Evo RG get it? It will. Morton survives by a crazy, crazy finish and stays alive here in July.
Oh, that's a fun one, man. You see there Morton with a smile on his face, probably his heart rate maybe at, knowing Morton, probably at like 74, which is pretty high for him. That was a super, super fun finish. The panic, the fisherman blocks on both sides, the E-Spirit putting in a lot of work. You were calling it, is it going to freeze it? Is it going to freeze it? The E-Spirit gets the jump. The Fish Boy pulls the Skeleton King, actually works out well. Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
That was so much fun. Those are the kind of matches that you want when you're casting this game. Let's take a look back at game number 1, and there you go. You see the body block with the Mighty Miner pushing the Hog just a little bit out of the way with that bomb tower being a little bit lower, and that's a good bomb tower placement other than that body block move. And you see Morton getting the big lead there and then shutting it down here on the left-hand side. And Andrew, you called it. He was in a good position after that big lead got opened up.
Yeah, I mean, and I love the replays that we're pulling here because it's really showing the bomb tower discipline by Morton as opposed to Ta. Now, obviously, we're talking about two very different win conditions in the wall breakers and the Hog Rider. Obviously, the wall breakers, it's easier to play them up high at the bridge, get them off the board instantaneously. But the more so the idea is that Morton was playing them up high at the bridge every single time to make sure the Firecracker wouldn't connect to the tower. So conversely, if you're Ta, when you're going up against Mighty Miner and Hog, you have to sometimes play that bomb tower. It's going to feel a little awkward, but one more tile inside to prevent exactly what we saw there. And then from that moment on, it really was Morton in control of the entire set until those final few Royal Giant moments. Really good set for Ta, but kind of what we were thinking, all three of us were thinking, is Morton's experience, maybe Morton's calm gives him the edge here. And, as we talk about the decks, Rich, I think that, going Firecracker in game 1 and then going RG in game 2 is not a bad choice for Ta.
No, and it seems like a pretty standard choice at the moment, right? We're seeing this kind of sequencing with the Evos pretty commonly. When we look at here at game number 1, one big glaring difference, there is a big spell for Morton. There is not a big spell for Ta in this one, but there is directly getting on tower with the Miner, whereas Morton has to break on through, and he did. That was the huge difference here. And as we go on into game number 2, one of the big differences here, Andrew, was the quick cycle, this deck from Morton going around a little bit faster, but then also the bulk of the damage came from the Lumberjack raging up troops who had broken through to the next level.
Yeah, and then, obviously it's a pretty normal draw to get the E-Spirit with this deck, right? E-Spirit with Evoed RG is a very regular spirit to run, but it really, really worked out well for him when he's playing up against this Skeleton King. You talk about the Mother Witch, and that's fine. She didn't get a whole lot of value. There's not a lot of small units, but really the work that E-Spirit put in against that Skeleton King, and then the Skeleton play following it up, Morton had a lot of really great 2 elixir defenses that stopped about 4 to 5 plus elixirs. So really big shout out to him. He's moving on, staying alive down in that lower bracket. Ta ends up falling out early here today, but we got another elimination match coming up in just a moment. AC, pretty much a straightforward match. My question to you is, unless you have your own thing to bring up, but I'm still going to throw this question your way. Is it a bad idea for Ta to go Evoed Firecracker, then RG? Would it have been better for him to open with the RG because it's his comfort and then go to Firecracker? Maybe a little bit less predictable, or do you think Morton maybe just had his number dialed?
I think I think that he should have started off with RG, because I think when you go against Morton, you really can't afford to get a mirror match against him. When it comes down to the Firecracker, it's obviously so valuable to win that match that if you're going against Morton, I think it's probably better to just wait until he's used it, and then that's when you can pull it out.
That's a pretty important one there. Yeah, that's a pretty important one there. We've seen so far Firecracker has pretty much been the champion of this weekend overall. Maybe to give the Firecracker the golden ticket and send her to World Finals. And you're at this point, Andrew, do you think that we're going to see that Firecracker is like a guaranteed play in the first 2 games, and we're never going to really see her in Game 3?
Yeah, I mean, we can take a look at the bracket as I kind of talk through this. I think so. I think that if you're going through and you're talking about the way that we're playing, the way that everything is best of 3, I think when you look at the success of all the competitors that are still standing here, if you're not using Firecracker in games 1 or 2, you are really severely putting yourself at a disadvantage. Truly, it's Firecracker in game 1 or 2, and then you have to play Evoed RG or Evoed Barbs in games 2 or 3. Like, that's just the way it is. I think Mortar has made his conversation. If you're getting to a 3-game set and you love Mortar, you can play it in game 2, but like, you have to have RG and you have to have Firecracker in your set as of right now. But as we go into our next match between Igor and Sosa, I think if any competitor out there in the world does not play an Evoed card, it would be Igor, right? That's just kind of his jam. He does what he wants when he wants, and a lot of times he wins.
Well, he's won quite a lot throughout his career, and he's done some good winning so far in this weekend. And of course, Igor playing from the bridge of the Enterprise throughout this competition. Already took the win over Morton earlier on. Now he has another difficult out here in Sosa. Josh, you know, Sosa's been on a pretty good tear. If you're coaching Sosa in preparation for Igor, what advice are you giving him?
Well, I think the advice that you give him is that you remind him that at this point, he is the player to beat. It's not Igor. I mean, Sosa has been here 2-3 times now. And so that is, I think he just has to speak to the confidence of Sosa and say, hey, you're the guy to beat. It's not Igor anymore.
Wow. Yeah, confidence certainly important here. Andrew, we've seen a lot of players blink under the lights, but so far, Sosa has not been that guy.
Yeah, and you know, I think a big part of it is exactly what AC is saying. I actually really love that point that he just made, and I think that's a lot of the mentality that Mohamed Light is trying to tell his competitors to replicate. Even yesterday on stream, he was saying it when he was playing someone that he knows is a really, really good ladder player, but he played terribly against Mo. And maybe that young buck confidence is what Sosa has. You know, he's got his head down, he's been putting in the work, he keeps hearing his name called out more and more and more at the highest level. And I think the fact that now one of our, you know, former CRL champs and our co-caster is saying that he's the man to beat in a matchup with the world champion, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty big confidence booster if I'm Sosa.
And on the other side of things, Igor, of course, known, you can't spell Igor without ego, as I think we've said in the past, and Igor definitely known to make some deck choices that, I don't know, Josh, if you think that he's going for interesting matchups, or if it's more that Igor's confidence goes beyond confidence into the stratosphere. But we've seen Igor make some strange choices. The triple spirit RG he used to run back in the day that your teammate ran against him quite famously in CRL. Do you imagine Igor goes a little bit more conservative in his deck picks here, or are we going to see Igor going ego?
I really believe that we're going to see Igor going ego. And I mean, just from what we saw with the minor poison delivery deck, I don't find it to be that strong of a deck. And he'll still run it in multiple sets over the course of a day just because he wants to run that and he wants to show people that he can do it with whatever deck.
And as we say goodbye to Rich, AC, this is actually a perfect segue to this matchup between Sosa, who is at the top of your screen, and Igor, who's at the bottom. Even though their cameras are flipped right now, you can go Kazardi as Igor and Soki as Sosa, so we're making this about as confusing as we possibly can for you guys. AC, yesterday you were talking about, I do not want to see Graveyard Freeze on Sunday. It's Sunday morning, and I see Graveyard Freeze. How do you feel?
Oh, and it's Sosa. It's not even Igor, so I can't use that to my advantage. But, I mean, if Sosa's using it, I mean, I've been wrong 1,000 times before, and I'll be wrong another 1,000 times.
Welcome to casting.
Yeah. The thing is, if you're gonna use it game 1, I do understand it because these decks are gonna excel when you're going against RG, and so if your opponent hasn't used RG yet, you can get away with it. I feel like there's going to be eventually a better deck that comes into the meta, but currently right now, it's not too bad of a deck.
Yeah, it really does feel like this deck's inception was kind of a necessity to keep up with Firecracker and RG, right? We talked a little bit yesterday about how Boulder Loon Freeze was becoming more popular last week as people were trying to adjust to the meta, and now it seems like these kind of graveyard freeze decks with arrows and barbs is a way to kind of deal with the Firecracker and the RGs that you're going to run into in games 1 or 2 of a set. You know, it's a lot of map control, it's a lot of splash damage. That freeze helps with the evoed RG, so you can drop something like the guards on top of it. But yesterday, for some reason, it felt like it was more of like the solution to a math equation than it was actually a real solution to a Clash Royale problem. So we'll see here if Sosa can change the numbers on that, as he is down by an arm and a leg. Took good damage early on, but Igor with the, again, the evoed Firecracker, I felt like I just talked through like 3,000 damage and I only talked for like 20 seconds.
Yeah, all of a sudden, it's so crazy, especially once it hits triple elixir, but even in double elixir, you cycle that third Firecracker and it just gets so much damage, and you're defending kind of easily because the Mighty Miner is so strong with individual attackers. That deck is so special to watch when you're playing it the way Igor does.
And that's like, again, what goes back to what we're talking about. Literally what I was talking about as the game was ending was, you know, this deck makes sense when you're talking about dealing with things like a math problem, but then all of a sudden you talk about the actual gameplay. You got 3 Firecrackers on the board, one of them evolved. Arrows isn't going to do enough for you, and you can't arrows freeze Firecrackers on the other side of the board, so what do you do? And I think you end up losing the game. I would love for our producers, and you guys can hate me if you'd like, but I'm just curious if we could look at the numbers for how well Graveyard Freeze has done this weekend. I know that's a lot, and you can just tell me to go away, but here we go.
We're going to have an RG versus RG matchup. We could see the Goblins variation from Sosa up top, and Igor still with 4 cards remaining. Not totally sure exactly what set we're going to use. Oh, it looks like it could be an exact mirror match.
Looking like it so far as bar barrels go rolling in each direction here. 3,003 to 2,745 as an RG is set up in the back. Igor going to the Monk. I like this call. Monk, again, not really worried about the Firecrackers, just played in game number 1, but that pushback is actually very, very effective.
Yeah, we're going to see if he tries to protect the Monk, but it looks like Sosa's just going to let that die. And the Monk is just so incredible at taking out the RGs. The RG just won't cross the bridge, which is exactly what we're seeing right here. And it looks like both competitors are totally fine with just having a bridge battle and letting all these troops just go to waste.
That was a really nice E-Spirit by Igor. He uses it, retargets the Phoenix onto the Monk, and then his Phoenix stays alive with the Goblins played down low. Does end up taking a bit of damage for it, though, as we can see Sosa going all in. But remember, there's an Evoed RG on the other side of the board. 1775 down to 1535. Igor could be in a very good spot.
Right there, going in with the Monk in front, but the Fisherman and the Phoenix will be able to put in significant amounts of work. RG pulled into the middle, and it's going to get the tower down fairly low, 1689 to 1535. Slight advantage for Sosa, but Sosa already has another RG up on the board.
So Graveyard Freeze, at least as of right now, has only been played a few times this weekend, and it is at a 0% win rate, at least as a quick run the numbers from our production staff. So big shout out to you guys. Thank you. I'll try to be as annoying as I can today, just do random stat callouts like that.
Going in with the Monk on the left. He does have to worry about that because of the reflection that could have been utilized. Instead, he defends with the Fisher, or defends with the Lumberjack. 604
this
to
Lumberjack
to
wow. Igor just caught looking straight up. Lumberjack beams down the left-hand lane, gets on top of the tower there, going to game number 3. And I don't know. I mean, this goes back to what you were saying at the top of this set. Sosa playing really well. Getting bodied like that in game number 1 has got to be very demoralizing against someone like Igor when you are in an elimination game, and to be able to come back in game number 2 in a mirror matchup, I'll love to see it. Near mirror.
Yes, near mirror. It's so great to see. There's something about a fresh meta where none of the players know how to play the decks correctly. And, you know, obviously on a micro level, they're going to be playing really well, and they're going to sort of have an idea how to play the macro level, but we're still seeing certain opponents or certain players use the RGs in the back, and we're still seeing certain players always take that opportunity to go RG at the bridge. Nobody has really figured out how to play that matchup just yet.
And we're seeing Hogs go in both directions, but Igor not running the Firecracker version, obviously running it in game number 1 to his success, is now running the Archer Queen version, which is something that we talked about a little bit yesterday. It's going to be Hog EQ with Mortar. Happy to see Igor playing Mortar, and he does get a Mortar lock. Monk not in the right spot there.
That is so massive, especially when you know your opponent has the quickest Hog cycle deck in the game. So it's going to be Firecracker Hog going against that Mortar Hog. And now I have to wonder if Igor used Firecracker in game number 1. I can't remember his deck.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is he played Firecracker in game 1. Remember he had like 3 on the board or whatever.
That's right. Yes. How could I forget?
And it looks like with Hog Rider, both these guys have had success. Obviously, 2 very different versions of Hog Rider. Igor's 70% win rate with Hog so far. It's his 4th most used win condition, but he does obviously have a couple more here as this AQ on the tower, completely undefended. Guards late, game over, man.
And we see a slight smile coming out of Igor. He knows that if he can just defend for the next minute, he's going to be able to walk away with the victory. I mean, Sosa's going to have to come out with something crazy, but I just don't think it's possible. He cannot get past these defensive mortars that Igor is going to, especially with the mini P.E.K.K.A. This is an incredible matchup for Igor.
Yeah, there's so much about this matchup that is wonderful. I love that Hog in the pocket. Turns the Monk around, and I know it's not the play of the day, but it's a fun one to at least start talking about early on, because everything about this was, you just said, the matchup, wonderful. I was going to try to talk about it, but then Sosa lost the tower, which was, you know, when you know your opponent is going to run Firecracker, Firecracker has always run, I need to be quiet here for a second or else we're going to lose this tower. Evo'd Firecracker at the bridge, Firecracker behind, another Hog Rider coming down the lane. Snowball plus mini P.E.K.K.A, question mark? No, Evo'd Firecracker shot comes in again. EQ is in, we're going to 2 towers? No, 3 HP. Wow. Wow, and Igor is going, all right, I need to wake up if I want to win a golden ticket. That was way too close for comfort. And you can see there, Igor reeling even though he just won.
These games are not real. We can't, all right, it's official. I'm never saying the game is over until the game is actually over. It is impossible to tell. There's too much offense now. It's amazing.
Especially when you've got, I mean, because I was thinking the pile up that Sosa can build with a Monk in the front is actually pretty scary, right? Because AQ and Mini are the 2 biggest damage dealers. Then Igor gets the turn with the Hog in the pocket, and I'm like, all right, game over. But now there's no way to get on top of that Evo'd Firecracker. Absolutely brilliant stuff there from Sosa, who almost turns this into an incredible 2-tower game 3 of our set, but Igor escapes by the skin of his teeth, and you can see here the success he had in game 1 with that Firecracker. Doesn't have it in the tank anymore for games 2 and 3. No problem. It's going to be an easy 2-0 set, right? Wrong. Sosa coming back alive here, doing a great job in this near mirror matchup. Takes game number 2. Showing a lot of poise, showing a lot of composure. This is the Lumberjack that got away. Errant Lumberjack as Igor goes an Evo'd RG at the bridge. Kind of an odd mistake by him. And then we get to game number 3. Igor runs AQ because he knows his opponent is going to run Firecracker. It's the only Evo card that is going to win the game, right? And he hasn't run it yet in this set. Comes out with it. Igor goes, all right, I'm going to go Archer Queen because you have to go either Earthquake or Log NATO. Seems like he's got it all sewn up. And then this beautiful push at the end by Sosa. AC, this was insane.
Wow. So I'm trying to re-watch these replays, obviously, and I'm trying to figure out where he could have gone just slightly differently. And I think it really comes down to, and I mean, we've been talking about this for the entire time, Igor just hasn't really been practicing. And maybe he should have put the mortar in a different placement where it wouldn't lock onto the Monk, where the Monk would be able to reflect the Goblin Shot back onto the mortar. I think that's how he comes back, but I don't know. There's just so much offense overall and you really just cannot tell when a game is going to be finalized.
You and I were both saying yesterday after the show, it is so fun to cast, and I'm sure it is so scary to play when you have things like this Evo Firecracker go. And we talked a lot about that game one, the deck. I don't think Graveyard Freeze is the wave right now, but hey, if you can prove me wrong, please do it on broadcast. I love being wrong on broadcast. Game number two, it felt like, you know, Igor might have the matchup here. He doesn't have the Lumberjack, but that Monk felt like it could put in a lot of work, but it was actually that Lumberjack, talked about him a lot recently, went and stole the game from Igor. Evo'd RG at the bridge from him on the right side, Lumberjack down the lane on the left, and then we go to game number three, and we can see exactly what we just saw there. AQ on the board, no big spell, should be okay, right? Mini P.E.K.K.A to take care of the Hog, both have exceptional win rates with Hog Rider, but Igor takes a tower early on with some late guards by Sosa, and then of course that Firecracker build up at the end almost made it a really, really fun game number three. Wow, Firecracker. So, you know, Rich is about to come back on screen here in just a moment, and he was just saying, you know, to us, is it a mistake if you're not running Firecracker in games one and games two? You know, Rich, I think we probably saw maybe the best example of how that could go running Firecracker in game three. Do you think it was a mistake by Sosa, or do you think because it ended up being so good, you know, no sweat on our backs?
I mean, look, he had Firecracker in game three, right? Meaning that he got to game three and then had the kill card. So whatever his strategy was to get to that point, that worked. Whether it's the right move in general is a different conversation. It was the right move here. He got good reads, got himself there, and got himself in a position where he could have been competitive. And I thought he was going to use that Firecracker more on the mini P.E.K.K.A when it defended Hog and get more chip damage. We saw that happen late in the game. What we saw also, though, is we saw Igor with that win jump into the top 40 on our leaderboards. And this is where things start to get really crazy because of how tight it is. If Igor wins his next match against Morten, he jumps up into the... He might actually jump into the top 30. He jumps into the top 25, and if he makes it to second place today, he'll jump into the top 20 on our leaderboards. So that's really scary for everyone. He doesn't have to win a golden ticket this weekend to be in real World Finals contention.
And you get a World Finals champ in the mix, man, and you're never safe. I mean, that's the thing about these guys. You get any of them there at World Finals, and anything can happen, especially someone like Igor, who had the greatest World Finals debut in history. And talking about those, you know, two guys that were there, I'm pretty sad I'm not going to be on the cast, but I'm pretty excited I get to sit back and watch. Boys, you guys have a barn burner of a match here between Morten and Igor. Where do we go? We've seen a lot of good stuff from both of them. Morten has been perfect, I'd say, in drawing up decks. Igor's shown a little bit of that ego, but it's worked out. Thoughts?
You know, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I feel like Morten's gameplay from his first set, Igor, there was still a few things that weren't perfect from him. And I mean, obviously, it's very difficult to do that. But here's the thing. I think Morten had that perfect set. So I really have to say that Morten has the advantage with it. His RG gameplay was spectacular. His Hog gameplay was spectacular. And those are the only two decks in the meta, it seems. So I do say that Morten probably has the advantage right here.
I think the other thing to take into account is just the emotion dump we just saw from Igor at the end of that last best of three, right? I mean, he was... I don't think I've ever seen Igor shook like that. So I don't know if that was like a happy celebration, if that was just, you know, the release of freaking out that he almost threw that tower. Either way, Andrew, it feels like that has to be a factor.
Yeah, you know, that's a really, really great thing for you to bring up. I think he's probably sitting there going, wow, this game is just like, I got to keep up with it. I got to keep up with it. You know, it's one of those things that it is evolving so quickly. You talked about it before the monthly final, Rich, and saying that you never know who's going to win a game because of what that Firecracker can do. I got to go. My popcorn just popped. I got to watch this match.
Well, here we go. Igor versus Morten. Morten already the top of our leaderboard overall in points. We'll see if Igor can jump up. Has already stepped into the top 30, into the top 35 with that, top 30 with that previous win. If you take out the 4 golden tickets, that makes him in the top 26. A win here over Morten would move him into the top 25, but with those 5 golden tickets awarded, effectively would move Igor, Josh, into the top 20.
And so obviously that's what he needs right here. Defensive arrows to take out the Phoenix Egg. Morten is going to be running the RG quick cycle deck that we've seen plenty of times and already seen from him once today. Igor, it looks like he's running what could be Balloon so far. Still have to wait for the final 4 cards, but still leaning towards Balloon from Igor.
Loon has been struggling mightily. You know, thinking about this pick, and here we go. Are you still feeling Loon, Snowball, and Arrows? Certainly support it, but now we're seeing Mortar.
That's right, and I'm certainly much more okay with that, but we're noticing that it isn't the Evo'd Mortar so far, so still gonna have to wait to see what that last card is. I know you guys were talking about it the other day where you weren't sure if he was, oh, he just didn't put it in the spot, okay.
Okay, I wonder if that was in error. The Mortar not in the Evo. I mean, it has to be, right? You have to have just forgotten to put it in the Evo spot because we know he has it unlocked.
Yeah, that's going to be your only answer. Wow. It's pretty shocking to see that mistake. It's not shocking that it's from Igor, but it's still, this should not happen in a competitive match.
Only 18 games. So, man. That's seeing some of the result of that right there, it feels.
Monk played at the bridge, going to be taken away from the action from the Fisherman, but the guards plus the Phoenix plus the Snowball will be able to clean it up nicely. Evo to RG's, not going to put in too much work. And then Miner and Phoenix on the opposite end. These are strong defenses, even without the strongest card.
And Mortar to the left-hand lane will not get on. We saw Mortar connect a lot in the previous game for Igor. Have to imagine we're not going to see as much of that this time around, especially when the Mortar is played out of position and not going to get on tower.
That is a wild position from Igor. He's just going to go all in right now. Morten has a lot of action going down the right lane, but the Mortar on defense should be able to help, but not that much. The Monk is getting pushed away.
Wow. The Monk getting knocked back rather than actually being able to use its knockback. And that is a huge, huge problem for Igor here, where that Monk normally does a great job of trying to mitigate that RG damage. And that Royal Giant does barely get on the Mortar very late, but it feels like this one, and it is. Morten, come from behind, takes care of game 1.
Yeah, Igor has to be so frustrated. It's all about the emotions right now. Not using that Evo'd Mortar in game number 1. That is, it really does have to be the worst way to lose right now. Everything has to be going on in his head.
And Morten, cool, calm, collected, in control here in our first match, in our first game. And I wonder if Morten's just running back the same duel set that he used against Ta. No, he's not, because he ran Hog with Firecracker, this time running Drill, so gives us one look at a similar deck with the RG, and then now switches things up, going Drill rather than Hog.
Nice predictive log from Morten. Gonna get the tower down to 25-39 and responding to the Ghost with Goblins in the perfect split. So Igor is forced to defend. Igor looking like he's just gonna run a quick cycle RG. Morten on the opposite end, just gonna be running Drill NATO likely.
And we'll see if that's going to be Golden Knight for Morten. With this Drill, we've been seeing some back and forth, and there you go. And opting not to go for the King Tower activation, I guess, against Royal Giant, not as effective.
Yeah, it does make sense, but at the end of the day, I don't know, it's always a weird position because you always want to activate the King Tower, obviously, and the Ghost is going to apply a lot of pressure. And I mean, you really don't even have that many opportunities to use the NATO, but at the end of the day, if you can always defend with Goblins, then it's not really necessary. It's a weird spot, and it's actually really cool. It's a nice thought experiment to think about.
Well, the other thing about that, though, is against the Royal Giant, having that King Tower activated with trying to pull it to the middle would be valuable, except for you're not trying to pull it to the middle here. Oh, and that log going for a prediction. Skeletons dodge, but doesn't matter. The ICBM on the shoulder of that firecracker connects and does huge damage.
Yeah, getting the tower all the way down to 817. Morten is just dominating this board right now. I mean, Igor just has no chance to get through. But here's the thing, he's got Evo RG. It's now double elixir. So technically none of what I'm saying even matters because he still has that shot. It still can come down to Morten messing up one simple interaction. So the game is certainly not over.
Log to support the Golden Knight push. Firecracker does get a little bit of chip onto that Archer Queen. Bomb Tower plus NATO to pull back, do some damage. This Evo RG trying to break on through, but Morten doing a great job of mitigating that damage, only taking one of those big golden shots on the left-hand tower. Had to spend a lot, though, and now has to recover.
Yeah, Firecracker on defense should be able to clean up fairly nicely, but this is still going to be a lot of action coming down the lane. The Firecracker not taken out, so brilliant defense from Morten, 2,300 HP to 700, and an Evo'd Firecracker on the board. I mean, that really looked like the push that was going to be able to win him the game, if it was. So since Morten was able to defend it, he's got to feel so good.
On the right-hand side, Drill not able to get any significant damage here, and this is what Morten wants to try to do, or what Igor wants to try to do, is just, can he limit that damage and then get one big Evo Royal Giant breakthrough? Morten wants to force expenditure as much as possible on the right-hand side. Does get a little bit more from the Goblins, 479, but how does he hold up against this push in the left-hand lane?
Yeah, great log timing right there. I think it was an E-Spirit that was taken off the map, but I couldn't even tell because of the exact timing from him. Bomb Tower should be placed shortly, but no, he's just going to defend with the NATO, and I really like that because you don't want to allow the RG to start pushing troops away from pushing troops away from the RG.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key. We're seeing the key to defending the Evo RG being done by Morten over and over again. Don't let it shoot. And I know that seems like, hey, that's how you stop RGs in general. But again, the longer you can keep stunning those RG shots from happening, the more DPS can be done by those defending troops like those Goblins. So very nicely done. And again, Morten, just textbook performance here, and he is just 23 seconds away from sending Igor home here in the top 4.
Yeah, not the Evo'd RG, so this isn't really that scary of a push. We should see at least a log back or a NATO back. 454, an Evo'd Firecracker going to take it out right now. 14 HP, it's over. Morten with the 2-0 sweep. Oh my word.
Oh my word indeed. Morten came to play today, shutting down Igor very quickly, guaranteeing himself a spot in the top 3. And what a nice little sly smile there from the multiple-time world finalist.
I mean, this is the second brilliant set from him. Everything is coming together. It's so clear. I mean, we talk about it all the time. With streaming, look, when you take streaming seriously, you're still sort of taking competitive extra serious compared to everybody else because you're putting in, I mean, this has always been the case for Morten. If you check his battle log and you go to last 7 days, he will always, no matter when you look, he will always have at least 1,000 games played in the past week. Nobody else in the world you can say that for.
And seeing some of the RG push here from Morten in game number 1, and just Evo RG gets in deep, and we saw the struggles the Monk had against the Evo RG, not able to get that palm strike in and knock the Royal Giant back and just pedal to the metal. And keep in mind, this is after Igor had already taken a pretty big lead, taking the left-hand tower down by about half its HP, the battle back. And you have to wonder how much that no Evo on the mortar mattered. And Josh, do you think no Evo on the mortar was a major factor in that first game, or do you think it was a minor factor in that first game?
Well, I think it was just a major factor for the set, and it all comes back to what you were saying earlier with just the thought process and what happens to your energy when you just make a simple mistake like that. And I really think it affected him for, I mean, not only game 1, but game 2 as well. I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, and as good as Igor is, I wouldn't be shocked if it was a best of 3, but you played 3 games no matter what, if he had lost all 3 games just because it felt like it was clear that his head wasn't in the right space.
And Morten just playing textbook with the drill firecracker deck against that Royal Giant in game number 2. So a clean 1-2 here from Morten. That's going to leave Igor out in the top 4, but he will walk away with that top 4, taking 50 points on that leaderboard, which will end him up in the top 30, less the 5 golden ticket winners. So that's going to put him in the top 25 on that hunt to make it to World Finals through points. So a good performance for Igor overall. But now those players staying at home, when they look at what we have left in this board, and we're going to go and take a look at the bracket here in a couple of moments, but when we look at what's left, Morten winning for all those players who are in the chase, Josh, has to be absolutely huge.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I mean, we know Morten is going to make, well, okay, we're fairly certain that Morten is going to make World Finals, and we're fairly certain that we're probably going to see him in another monthly finals this year. He's just so consistent, and so you want to see him get that golden ticket. You need him to just not be a factor when you yourself are trying to qualify through points.
And now we are down to our top 3. Morten going to go ahead and await the loser of our upper bracket finals between Arden Toas and Faust. Andrew, Igor kind of got ran through there, and I know that there's no Evo Mortar in the first game. Do you think that the Evo Mortar does it hold up against the Royal Giant there, or does the Royal Giant still get that there in the end? In your thoughts?
I think one of my favorite things about the Evo Mortar, it's something that we talked about a little bit yesterday, was just like, I do feel like it's probably the most balanced of the Evo cards, even if it might still need adjustments. I do really like the improved HP, because when you're getting late in the game and you have regular Mortar, a lot of times you'll find yourself not really ever being able to get back on offense because you have to spend so much defensively. It's usually like, oh, I can get in a miner here, I can maybe get in a poison there if they give me the value, and mainly you're just looking for logs and miners. So the fact that you have the ability for a building to just hold on a little bit longer, especially against something like the Evo to RG, I think it could have helped. But I think also it goes back to what you guys were talking about more so, of just like the mentality of the set and going into that game, realizing that you've already put yourself at a disadvantage, even if you could still win the game. I mean, you said, Rich, he was down 1,500 HP. And yeah, we can look at the back bracket as I finish up this thought. It's the same thing it's always been. Get Igor a coach with an attitude like Eric, and maybe you can get him to do what he needs to do to be a champion again. But until then, it's just tough. He plays skeletons in day 1. He plays, Mortar Loon without upgrading his Mortar to Evo. It's just small things like that. And, you guys talk about the consistency of Morten. He just does what he does best. He plays they just said we're going on cameras, so I just spoke. He plays the decks that he knows are the best, and he puts in the work to know all the interactions.
And taking a look at this bracket, we are down to our final 3. The winner of Arden Toas Faust will be awaiting the winner of Morten versus the other guy. So that win for Arden or Faust will be huge. And I know everyone watching at home who is in that race sees Faust and Morten, the number 2 and number 1 players overall on the points leaderboard, and they are fingers crossed hoping that one of those 2 guys wins and takes one more person out above them. If you're Air Surfer, if you're Sandbox, if you're any of these guys who are in that outside of the top 7, that 8 to 20 range, Josh, the worst thing that can happen for you today is for Arden Toas to win a golden ticket.
Yeah, that's right. I was texting Air Surfer last night, and that's what he was saying. And this is no slight to Arden Toes, but he was saying the worst case scenario. And I mean, he was talking about this entire weekend. He needed everything went wrong for Air Surfer because you need the Rubens to actually do a little bit better, and then Arden Toas to actually lose earlier on. And right now, if Arden Toas wins this golden ticket, this is, I mean, quite possibly the worst case scenario for every single player in this monthly final for those 8 to 15 range.
Yeah, except for Arden Toas, Andrew. That would be the big situation for him. Of course, he also came into the weekend as the closest guy out of the chase group for those points totals, and has already guaranteed himself a top 3 spot. So those points alone already take him a big step closer to World Finals.
Yeah, well, you guys know that I love wreaking a little bit of havoc, so we can remind the viewers at home of our predictions, because talking about Arden, you guys are definitely going with the better route, right? You're going with Faust in terms of like what is better for the overall CRL picture for everyone other than Arden Toast, right? So we had a pretty good start to our day. We go Morten, we go Igor, then we go Morten again, and now we're at the first kind of fork in the road. You guys both going Faust, me going Arden, and I know that we're going to say goodbye to, I believe, Rich. Rich, what are your thoughts on at least Faust's gameplay yesterday?
Yesterday, Faust was doing some of the best stuff we've seen from him, right? And we saw some close calls. We saw some nail biters there. But, you know, we've talked about this before. Sometimes the Clash Royale, Andrew, it's better to be lucky than good. And yesterday, Faust was both.
AC, we're actually saying goodbye to you, so I want you to get in your thoughts here. What are your thoughts on Faust? What was it that he did yesterday that made you, because I think you were more of an Arden stan at the beginning of the day, and now you're talking about Faust.
Yeah, I mean, it really does come down to as soon as he shows me something beautiful, I'm ready to root for him. And one thing that I really liked is the fact that he's using lava. I've had a lot of talks with a lot of different coaches where they're saying, yeah, we kind of want our players to be running lava, but we're kind of too scared because we don't have enough practice with it. And so using lava, and I mean, he can use the loon, but the loon isn't that good anymore. Just as a solo win condition. The fact that he can use lava the way he can gives him a huge advantage when all these players are running these RG decks, when they're running these Firecracker decks.
Yeah, he does have a couple of decks where he's gone to the skies with. I mean, Lava Hound with Loon and Evoed Barbs, he's played, looks like 4 times in qualifiers, but he's at like pretty much a dead even 50% win rate. So I definitely like the idea of pulling it out to keep him unpredictable. And also, you know, it can be harder to defend against the skies sometimes when all you have is just a lone Firecracker. So I do really like the idea of going to the skies. Rich or AC can sound off on this. Lava versus Evoed Firecracker, if that's your only card to attack air, is it enough? Is a Firecracker and a Bomb Tower enough against a good Lava Loon player?
Well, Josh, I think I'll defer this one to you, but I think we also need to take into account that those top guys against Lava Loon players, how important whatever their spirit choice is going to be as well.
Yeah, that's right. I think that you can get away with just the Firecracker because you do. I think it really depends how that first starting 2 minutes happens, because a lot of these games we're waiting for double Elixir to have the double Evoed RGs and the double Evoed Firecrackers. And so it really depends on how that first 2 minutes goes, because we saw it, I forgot what game we saw, but it was just Lava first play, Balloon came shortly after, and I think it was against Dark Angel, and he just couldn't defend with his deck yet. And so it really depends how that first 2 minutes goes.
And as we get ready for this one, a little update here with both of these players making the top 3, guaranteed 65 points overall on their leaderboard. So Faust will be maintained, and at least for the moment, his grip on second place behind Morten on the top 7. But Arden Toas, now with 305 points, is in that top 7 range to qualify for World Finals. So already has done so much this weekend.
So now it doesn't quite matter as much, right? If he wins, because he's already in that top little group.
Yo, he's in the lower half of that group, right? So if he loses right now, he remains vulnerable. If he makes it to the top 2, suddenly that position is even more bolstered. So there is vulnerability in the bottom half of that top 7. That top half is pretty well dug in with Morten, Faust, and Sosa.
So Faust going RG, Arden going Fire. And this will be an interesting matchup. 2 most popular decks in the game, basically. I guess really Thrill has a good competitor for that as well. Rich, go ahead.
I just love how you describe it as Morten going RG, or Faust going RG, and Arden Toas going Firecracker, as opposed to Arden Toas going Hog.
I know.
Clash Royale Esports had a tweet and Instagram post the other day that was really funny. It was a picture of a Firecracker with Hog and Wallbreakers below it, and said, with the new win condition, which one of these 2 support cards will you end up using to back it up? I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, and it's so true now, really. I mean, the Hog Rider is a lot of times just cannon fodder for the Firecracker to line up a great shot. So it's so funny. She really has been just already one of the most annoying cards to deal with, and now just incredibly powerful. So 30-52, Firecracker is in the lead right now, 22-94 for Faust, but we have seen those Evoed RG pushes turn games very quickly.
Yes, we have, and you know, a nerf for Firecracker certainly will be incoming at some point, most likely. I don't want to speak on behalf of the team, but it's interesting that Hog has kind of been, amongst top-tier players, the support card in Hog decks for so long. Right? For a long time, when Earthquake was crazy powerful, Earthquake was the win condition in Hog EU.
Yeah.
So it's curious that probably the most identifiable win condition, if there's one win condition that defines Clash Royale in many ways, it's the Hog Rider, but it's ended up being secondary in its key decks for now a couple of years.
And this is trouble right here. This Evoed RG got a lot of support there. Inferno Tower goes down 22-31, and while Arden is still in the lead, he's got to be feeling a little nervous about how that last defense went and how he needs to readjust. And you know, also the other thing that we've talked about a lot is RGs in the back, and then you get RGs at the bridge. Well, it's a little bit different when you're going Hog against RG. Arden gonna sacrifice 3 elixir there to get some chip, and now he's gonna put up another very, very strong defense.
Good distraction here, and you know, you think about how nice having the Inferno Tower should be against Royal Giant, but we saw this yesterday where this Royal Giant deck in particular, with the Goblins, the Barb Barrel, and of course the Fisherman sliding through, has so many tools at the disposal of a good player to distract the Inferno Tower and essentially nullify it. This Hog's gonna get a couple of good shots, or just one good shot, which is important right now, but expect Faust to be able to battle through against this Inferno Tower, and you see it happen right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great call on that Inferno Tower. Faust has been like a heat-seeking missile on top of that thing, and it's been pretty difficult for Arden to kind of keep that RG at bay, but he's doing a good job. I mean, as of right now, 17-17, 14-38, that Hog Rider is a little bit more threatening than the regular RG at the moment, but that Evoed RG can still do so much, and I think, honestly, yeah, I think honestly, he probably has to still go left lane. I didn't know he was going to go in the back, though.
Well, he sets up, he's trying to stack his RGs to get the full-on breakthrough. We'll see what he uses to try to get in front of the Inferno Tower here. Might go Goblins to the right-hand side, might just go Barb Barrel one more time. And that
Fishboy got a pull.
Will it get it? And it does. What a great Fisherman there from Faust to completely shut down that Hog Rider.
Incredibly fortuitous, and now Hog Rider comes in again. Fishboy still in the same spot, but this time it's distracted, and then Arden, you can see a little fist pump there. He knows that that Hog hit is absolutely massive. RG push in the back. I think Arden has to stay slightly aggressive here on offense so that we can't get too much support from Faust.
Fireball on the Firecracker. There you go.
Oh, what a pre-barrel there.
Cycled back to another Inferno Tower, though, is Arden Toas. That's absolutely huge. Can it stay up? No, it cannot. Goblins trying to stab enough. The EQ on defense does take one RG shot. 731 to 946.
He's got
8 seconds
nothing
left.
He needs to send in some offense. He's got nothing. Pre-cycled Fishboy. That's a great, great first game going to Faust.
I mean, this is the best we've seen Faust. We're seeing the promise of the premise paying off this weekend, Andrew.
And the patience from Faust, I love it. Playing beyond his years, recognizing it's okay to take a little bit of damage here and there. It's okay to get that EQ cycle in. I know what I need to do. I need to build big pushes on the left-hand side, and I need to distract that Inferno Tower. Then, as we got closer to the end of the game, the cycled cards that were not necessities in the left-hand lane started being pushed in the right-hand lane, dropping a Phoenix here and there, dropping smaller units to make sure you can add a little bit of support to those Hogs coming down the lane. And then that awesome Fisherman in the center of the board, pulling the Hog Rider to kind of ensure safety. Great game number 1 for Faust.
And you see Arden with a little tilt to the head there, not super stoked with what he sees coming out in this matchup. Feels like the advantage he was looking for not going to be there.
Yeah, I don't know if this is like a Barb's Graveyard deck going up against Graveyard as well, and yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And you know, you talked about it earlier, that the Graveyard deck having potentially the advantage over Royal Giant, but here he goes having already faced Royal Giant in game number 1 and pulling out Graveyard in game number 2, and Faust with Splash Yard Evo Barbs in reply.
Yeah, that's a really solid point that you're making there about just the idea, at least my idea, of why this deck that Arden is running has become so popular. I do think it does well against Firecracker, but I think it's probably a lot better against Royal Giant. And yeah, it's not in play anymore, but for some reason Arden's still feeling like it's the way to go. Yeah, I think it's at a 0% win rate with 3 games played. Arden is definitely a person that could turn that around.
90 seconds left in regulation time, and so far, a little bit of touch and go from both sides. Interesting to see Splash Yard out here on the day. Not the look I think anyone was anticipating.
Yeah, you know, it's been showing up a little bit more and more, but I agree. Definitely not the most popular, but at least we'll see Graveyard get a win. You know, that's a thing that'll happen at the end of this game.
That's true. You said facts. Evo Barb's gonna slice through this and turn into a big counter push here, and not a lot of splash to contend with this, so the freeze at the bridge to try to kind of chew through this big push.
And I also like that, you know, we didn't talk too much about how these guys haven't been super aggressive with their graveyards. One has come out, there's the second one in each direction. But yesterday that was a big problem with Graveyard being played, is it was just too aggressively played too early on. And I like that at least we saw a little bit more pause and poise here on day number 2.
Interesting Graveyard from Faust, though. Had no tanking for it, and the Graveyard wasn't tanking for anything in return either. So that Graveyard kind of fallen short, and here we go. The Graveyard freeze play late with the poison, and that's a significant chunk of damage done by Arden.
That's exactly what it was. Very, very late there on the poison. Low on Elixir was Faust, going, you know, deep into game number 2 here. Arden obviously trying to stay in this upper bracket, trying to stay and get himself guaranteed to that grand championship. And Faust there with a, I guess maybe a big misstep and just a little bit of an over expenditure.
Evo Barb's a lot behind it. This is just a full send. Faust does not have anything for the Graveyard. Look at only at 4 Elixir. And now it's just a melee at the bridge, a mosh pit, if you will, with about 80 seconds left.
I really love what Arden is doing, because he's recognizing that Faust is, if he's either going to use his poison to get those troops off the board, or he's going to use the poison to clean up the Graveyard. And right now, Arden is making Faust try to decide, all right, I guess I need to use it to clean up the Graveyard, but then these pushes are just not getting the support he needs because Arden is stacking up all these poisonable units. So there we go. Triple Elixir. Now we're seeing poisons on offense from Faust. We'll see how quickly Arden turns that into a Graveyard of his own.
Well, it's right now Faust winning the bridge battle on the right-hand side. That was a key factor in his being willing to go to the left-hand lane with that poison. We'll see if it continues to hold off. You know, Graveyard freeze on its own with no support certainly has its value, but you see here, knowing the poison is on defense and just the timing for Faust really working out. Only 30 seconds left, though, and a lot of ground to make up.
Wow, Arden, though, letting stuff go on this right-hand lane. A raged-up Barb and a Baby Dragon get on top of tower. It's not the end of the world there, but now it's the lowest tower on his side of the board. And Arden just recognizing, I need to keep him at bay at the bridge. That is my #1 job, win bridge battles. And that Inferno Dragon has been a very, very big key factor in doing so.
Well, we found out what it takes for this deck to win a game. It's to go against Splash Yard. Arden Toas evens things up here and sends us to game number 3.
I loved it. I feel like that was a very, very great game of macro understanding from Arden. What do I do? What do I need to exploit? What card of mine is the strongest? Where do I need to use my freezes? And all of those things came together for a very, very perfect. And you know what? The Skeleton King abilities were really, really great, because every now and then it was used as more of just like a pause at the bridge, and then he'd put in a freeze. So it was like, you know, activate Skeleton King ability, activate freeze, and all of a sudden you've just completely stopped your opponent in its tracks.
So interesting to note here, Faust has already played Tornado. You see him going with the Hog Firecracker deck, so clearly not going to be Tornado here. Whereas Arden Toas had 2 solid King Tower activations and ways to mess with Hogs available in the Firecracker and NATO. Chose to go Firecracker, in the NATO and the Fisherman. Went with the RG choice and gets a lot of damage early.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really aggressive start there. Gets the King Tower activation, gets the damage in. Arden feeling really good. Faust just having to recognize the situation he's in. I'm already down by, 1,200 HP, and my opponent's got the King Tower activated against my Hog Rider deck. Not a great spot. And Fishboy's in there.
We'll see how aggressive Faust tries to get in single and see if he can sneak past a Fisherman here. Does he play to the middle? And the Firecracker not going to get pulled, and Faust plays nothing high. No skeletons to distract the Fisherman, so that's a hog thrown away here. And Faust now has to concentrate on the Evo RG. Fishboy not going to stop the Mighty Miner, but the E-Spirit will give a little reset.
I think we all saw it, right? That Fisherman for a second, he was like, do I want to pull that Firecracker? Instead goes to the Hog. Really nice there for Arden, and stays pretty clean here with a damage lead in both lanes with his RG, which is really tough for Faust because now Arden can really, he's like, all right, fine. If you want to go in the left-hand lane, I can do that. He probably won't. Obviously, you see the RG set up in the back, but the ability to do it is there. If for some reason Faust starts to get a lot of damage on that left-hand side, and then Faust has to trade lanes. So we'll see exactly what Arden wants to do as this game goes on, but looking pretty good right now. 16-32, 27-34.
And the Fireball is just so key here for Arden Toas because it's such a simple and solid counter to that Evo RG. Good cycling here by Faust to keep that first RG off the board, but now we're back around, and this evolved one is going to make a beeline for the tower. Fireball gets onto the Firecracker one more time, and there's no stun. The log with the Skellies, is that enough? And he stops all the shots. Great work there by Faust. And you see there, really quickly, sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to add this in. That log at the very end took an E-Spirit off the board that Arden had just placed, and that E-Spirit would have taken care of those skeletons. So we'll see if Arden wants to adjust that in the future. Really, really nice log, though, there by Faust. And you see a smart, low Firecracker here. Happy to take the King Tower damage. That's not going to go down in this game, and avoid potentially being distracted at the bridge by the skeletons or something similar. So very measured play, mature play here by the young man.
Yeah, really, really nice low Fisherman there. Really awesome, just perfect timing. It's one of those things you love to see. And again, just really great timing with the Fisherman Skellies there to support. Now this Mighty Miner is a non-factor. And Arden's fit. I mean, honestly, in this set, the Fisherman has done great work for both players.
Well, Arden right now is deciding with the Fisherman, he'd rather take one shot than give up three. Right, so, and what I mean by that is you can fully counter that Hog Rider with the King Tower activated if you play the Fisherman just a little bit higher, but you run the risk of that distraction. So he's just making the calculation of, if I'm going to give up any damage, let me give up a single Hog Rider shot rather than get distracted and give up multiple ones in one sequence.
And I love that you're calling that out, because just to do one more on it, that's something that I actually used to ask Eric about, being a world champion head coach. And he's like, I always would say, take a little bit of damage to get that 100% defense. It's not worth it to say, I will take 0 damage for even a 70% defense. Go for the 100%. We've seen bomb towers miss pulls today, and we've seen the other side of that conversation. When you play the safest, smartest defense, take a shot, fine. Can't take 3, though.
And see, there you go. Another just single hog. Now this one, the Mighty Miner will distract long enough for another hog shot to get in, and that's one critical one. 14:02 to 10:11, but keep in mind, Arden Toas is going to be very close to an Evo RG here on the right-hand side.
And that Firecracker from Faust shot from like a different game and still connected to the tower. 14:02, 8:04, Hog Rider in again. Perfectly timed E-Spirit and Fisherman there for Arden. Ends up taking the tower, and that is it for our boy Arden Toas. Let's go, 2-1. Great set there.
Wow, Arden Toas all the way to the golden ticket final. And well, I'll give you the points total here in a moment, because even if he loses the final, he still has now taken another big leap up into our points totals overall. But man, now with a life to give in the golden ticket final, sending Faust down, where it will be an SK Gaming versus SK Gaming matchup in the lower bracket.
Love it, love it. The battle in Germany, and then Arden Toas sitting pretty, climbing up higher in those leaderboard points. So now I think it becomes one of those conversations, Rich, where any of these 3 guys winning is good for those guys that are in the lower point of the leaderboard, because Arden is just stacking points here. And you know what I gotta say? Arden losing game number 1 and then starting game number 2, talking about what AC said yesterday, loving player cams, I was worried he was tilted, Rich. And we've seen Arden get tilted before. We saw it at World Finals. We've seen it in other competitions. And sometimes it seems like if he's hot, you cannot stop this kid. But other times it's felt like if you get in his head early on, or if he makes a mistake, or if he loses a game by one interaction, he'll be out of the set. And that is not what we saw today. We talked a lot about his maturity over this weekend. This set against someone as great as Faust, battling back all the way through game 3 and a very good game 3. I love what I'm seeing here from Arden.
Yeah, and you know what? This is interesting. I bet you that Faust was looking to be against Royal Giant here in that second game and didn't find the match. You know, he had the slow, he had the NATO, he had the building, he had all the pieces there to try to stop an Evo RG, including the evolved Barbarians. And I think Faust was looking for that matchup in game 2, didn't get the matchup he was looking for, and then game 3 came around, and Arden Toas just played it perfectly, played it slowly, played it mature, and it was just a really great performance from him overall.
Yeah, that's I think a really solid point that you're making there about the predictability of it. You know, if we're always going game 1 Firecracker or game 2 Firecracker, and game 1 the other one is RG, you know, like that's the thing you go to every single time. But both of these guys kind of had a little different of an idea going to Barbarians in game number 2. I don't know if I love this deck choice from Faust, but who knows? It was against a deck that, you know, this is a matchup we hadn't seen yet so far. That Graveyard Freeze deck hadn't had any success, but now we see Arden picking it up. And then we go over to game number 3, Rich. Firecracker available for Faust, and Arden has the Royal Giant available. Both of them kind of playing the long game. I think it's pretty smart. You know, this is something that we talked about earlier on today. Is it only Firecracker in game 1 or 2? And then we've seen now twice where Firecracker has made it to game 3, but both players that have used Firecracker in game 3 have lost.
And, you know, Josh, I'm very curious on your thoughts here. We're seeing that Firecracker trend happening now, where the Game 3 Firecracker not actually pulling off. And now we're continuing to see this Graveyard deck over and over again. So I'm going to give you 2 parts. One, how do you feel about Firecracker now in Game 3? Do you still like getting it there, or are we just getting the bad matchups in game number 3? And then the second question, and I think we all know what's coming, is Splash Yard? Go ahead.
Yes.
I wish Nick just popped on camera right when you said that. That would have been amazing.
So question number 1, Firecracker game number 3. I don't mind it. I think that it can be the correct play. We were getting the stats fed to us where Faust just has one of the lower win rates with Firecracker. Yeah. So it kind of is just awkward for Faust, where he's the only player that doesn't dominate with it. And really, for question number 2, I don't think you can use Splash Yard. It's strong, but it barely works for RF at this point. So if he's even struggling with it, it's not the greatest deck. Really, the main thing that I want to point out with is game number 2, Arden. That game is all about the Inferno Dragon and how you use it. And what he was doing that I absolutely loved. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. The tombstones were placed on the opposite ends of the maps. And so he was going Inferno Dragon that same lane. So that way the Inferno Dragon would lock onto the Skellies and stay on his side of the board. I thought that was so brilliant. And I had never seen that, where that was how he was using the Inferno Dragon.
Well, it certainly did some good work for him, Andrew. Yeah.
I was just going to say, yeah, I didn't even like focus on that point. It was more so just him using it at the bridge. And it's just the layers that these players can do and think of. Like AC, I didn't even think that that's what he was doing, but I recognized it was happening. So Arden Toas, not only is he doing it with some fancy footwork, he's doing it with the macro, he's doing it with the micro, and he is in our grand finals, guaranteed at least second place here. And now, Rich, you said it, man. Battle of SK here, the old and the new guard. And this is, I already see your prediction in the chat. I'm going the exact same way. I think we all are. Why are we all still feeling Morten? Is it because we felt like Faust dropped a little bit there in that last set? Or is it more about how clean Morten has been today?
I think the answer is yes, Andrew. Just yes. It's everything. Morten's clicking. Faust is cracking a little bit here, and Morten has also had some nice time to prepare for this one. So that's my take on this. It feels like the momentum going towards Morten.
AC, are you feeling that it's just all momentum, or did you feel like there was something, a little crack in the armor, as Rich would love to say, in Faust's gameplay?
I'm trying to look through the battle log. I feel like Morten, the way he's playing his last few sets, he's playing so well that it's going to bump him back up into the winner's bracket. Like, this is gorgeous from Morten. I'm pretty sure he's gone 4-0 for the day.
Yeah.
This is just beautiful work from him, and it's no slight to Faust, but just the way that Morten is playing, he has just impressed me so much today.
He's gone 2-0 since he's been in the lower bracket. 2-0 Ruben, 2-0 Ta, 2-0 over Igor.
Wow.
And I do believe with that last win there, win or lose the golden ticket, and obviously he'd love to win that and the grand prize here for the month. Win or lose the golden ticket, Arden Toas has pushed himself into the top 4 on the overall points leaderboards for those top 7 golden ticket positions or world finals positions. So Arden, no matter what, his weekend has been good, but now he wants to look at these two and go, hey, do I need to really make sure I defend that spot as we go into our 6th and 7th month? Or am I going to get a free ticket to World Finals? We'll find out who he faces in a couple of minutes here.
All right, we'll say goodbye to Rich for just a moment. He'll be back for our grand finals. ACU and I have a fun battle in Germany here. The 2 SK members, as you can see, SK Gaming on both sides here of the screen. Morten been with them for just a little bit longer than Faust, though.
That's right. Faust's going to get a very nice interaction going, getting the King Tower activated, plus the perfect log timing. And then on the other end, Morten just kind of responding the same way. Great Spirit Goblin's going to activate the King Tower himself.
Yeah, like to see that out of Faust already, right? Clean gameplay. Little surprised at the bomb tower placement there from Morten. Maybe would have thought he went like a couple tiles over to the left so that the Firecracker isn't able to splash on tower, and I think he's probably feeling the same thing. I don't know if that was a bit of a gut reaction placement from him, but probably not happy about going down 600-ish HP this early on.
Yeah, but then the thing with the Firecracker is that it gets 800 damage when it's the Evolution Firecracker.
Yeah.
So he can come back very, very easily. Mighty Miners from both players, 140 left and a slight lead advantage for Faust. Faust just going to be running the Firecracker NATO version. And wow, look at that damage already. I mean, it's for Faust, but we're seeing the Firecracker get put to work.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, and then Morten plays his Firecracker into the splash there, and kind of all things going wrong for Morten, who needs to readjust as Faust gets another great Firecracker on the board, cleans Morten's up, gets some more splash damage, has a perfectly timed log. And this speaks so much more to Faust's mental fortitude than it does anything else. Yes, Morten isn't doing the best interaction-wise, but Faust just kind of got not bodied, but beaten in a very, very important upper bracket finals. And here he is back against one of the best in the world, making very clean plays.
Evo to Firecracker coming out from Morten. Gonna go walk down the left lane. And now, okay, so NATO used from Faust, and he's just gonna take the Firecracker off the board. That's exactly what you need to do. If you have the opportunity, it doesn't matter how much elixir you're spending, you need that Firecracker off the board.
And I do love that, you know, in the past when we had matchups like this, AC, if you were down 600 HP in the opening moments, it was already over. So I do love and agree with you that with the Evo Firecracker being a factor now, that is never the case in this game. As we saw with Igor earlier, you're never too safe.
14 seconds left. I mean, both players are just kind of repeating the same plays over and over. And right there, getting pretty aggressive, almost knocking it outside of the range, but not just quite. Firecracker not able to take out the opposing Firecracker. Offensive NATO used, and Morten in a world of hurt. Tower down to 435. And Faust, he's just cycling so quickly. Morten has no response, and it's really just skeletons for Spear Goblins, and the skeletons allow him to cycle so much quicker.
And also, Faust is like scary angry playing right now, honestly. He's playing so aggressive. Mighty Miner on that right-hand tower, sizzling away, Morten trying to make a case for himself, but Faust has been so aggro, it's been incredible. Morten has just been on his heels the entire game.
Yeah, I don't even know how it even happened. He got the offensive pressure early on, and he's been able to hold it. Morten is not getting pushes. We take a look at Faust then, and he has Mighty Miner, Evo Firecracker, Goblins on top of the tower. Morten just never has any kind of offensive presence.
Yeah, and that was just an exceptional showing there from Faust. The Spear Goblins making that a little bit longer to get back around, and it felt like because of that in and of itself, Morten had a really difficult time tracking Elixir and tracking Cycle for that entire game. I mean, setting up bomb towers in front for Firecrackers to line up, and then immediately on the other side of the board, there's an Evoed Firecracker on your tower, and then the pressure was just nonstop from there on out. So let's see if Morten can kind of reset and readjust back up against the wall. This is an elimination game in our lower bracket final. Winner goes on to our grand finals, will be in the competition for our golden ticket. So a huge, huge game number 2 here.
Game number 2, Faust going to be running RG. Morten looking like it's probably going to be Graveyard once again from one of our competitors. I mean, a lot of these players do believe that, but now with the introduction of the Skeleton Dragons, still could be Mortar, still could be Graveyard, still a lot of opportunities for some different decks.
Yeah, definitely a lot of options here, and Morten has the highest win rate with RG and Firecracker of all of our competitors in this monthly final, opting to maybe not play either of them here in game number 2.
Inferno Tower is going to put in a lot of work against the RG. That's the card that Morten needs to play perfectly every single time. So Faust is going to have to come up with an answer to that without the Lightning. Just going to be running the Fireball in this deck.
26-19, 28-59. And both these guys slow playing a bit here.
Skeleton King gonna take his time. Skeleton Dragons on the... I don't know how much value they're gonna get throughout this game, because we're always gonna see a Fireball, and then the DPS from the Skeleton Dragons aren't even that great. So it's really gonna depend. I mean, for Morten, I don't know. The Skeleton Dragons aren't gonna get that much value, but I think the Archers are gonna be one of those cards that we'll just see throughout the game.
Yeah, Archers and Goblins have kind of started to get a little bit more value because people are starting to play Fireball just more because, yeah, arrows are great against a regular Firecracker, but you need to deal with the Evoed Firecracker. So those cards like the Goblins, Archers, and Guards that were basically preyed upon when the Archers got buffed and the Goblins got buffed have now been able to kind of crawl back into the meta.
A huge push incoming for Morten. Gonna have Archers at the bridge. Needs to take care of the Goblins before they put in too much work. And this is actually good. Oh, I thought the Fisherman was gonna pull, but not entirely. Barbarrel gonna clean up most of it, but Morten with a great push going down the field, gets the tower all the way down to 1992 and flips it so that he has the advantage.
And I was in the same boat as you. I thought that we were gonna see the Skeleton King pulled first, and then that would have been a much more threatening push. A little bit of fortuitous decision making there by the Fish Boy there for Faust to pick up that first Archer, lower that DPS, and now a lot of red coming down that right-hand lane. We need some DPS on top of that RG, and we need it right now for Morten. And that sizzle from the Inferno, wow.
Yeah, Skeleton Dragons clean up everything else, but that was a great defense from Morten. And I was actually in the process of saying, hey, I'm not actually sure about this defense because he cycles the barbs in the back, and they're really not going to get any value. So I wonder if we're going to stop seeing him do that, especially when it's not the Evoed Barbs. I think you can cycle Evoed Barbs in the back, but when they're regular versions, I don't think cycling it in the back is the right play.
And this Phoenix just keeps getting an insane amount of value on exactly what you're talking about. You know, we see Skeleton Dragons over the middle, Fireball there, easy pull for Faust. And then, yeah, it's like a weird 5 elixir cycle right now for those barbs. Like, it's a 5 elixir cycle card that isn't doing a whole lot for Morten.
Both towers for Faust down to 1900 HP. And really, even though I don't totally love the defensive pressure from the barbs, the offensive pressure where they're going down the left lane is scary. But now this is a massive push. Lumberjack on top of the tower.
Wow, another errant lumberjack getting away here and now making trouble for our competitor. RG pushes the other RG. Evoed RG pushes regular RG. Regular RG gets a shot on tower. Evoed RG gets a shot on the Inferno. 1403, 1863. Skelly Dragons across the bridge, taken for a GY. Freeze should come in. There it is.
Yeah, getting the tower down to 1666 with the help of the arrows. One skeleton dragon locking onto the tower and getting it all the way down to 1072 with 12 seconds left.
That's huge. Late Inferno down. Fishboy still pulls it. Should be able to get back to a freeze. Fireball high, not low. Doesn't need the freeze. Morten pushes this to game number 3. Does need the freeze. Got him.
And Faust doing everything that he possibly can. And this is the matchup you're actually looking for when you're running these Graveyard Freeze decks. I mean, really, the commentators get to say, oh, we don't like this deck because you're not getting matched up against RG. When you actually get the matchup, this is the deck you want to be using.
And, you know, Morten never really playing this deck before. Gosh, I love our producers. I'm giving you guys a shout out right now. Morten never played that deck before, but AC, literally to finish your sentence, gets the matchup that he wants. Beautiful stuff. 0% win rate with Graveyard Freeze up until that moment. Morten doing what he does, making history. Maybe a little bit of small history, but still.
Game 3 winner moves on into the championship round, but again, we've talked about it all day yesterday as well. The points are absolutely massive every single game. I mean, we can look into the future in 2 months. We could say that the winner of this moves on to the World Finals, so a lot of pressure on both of these competitors.
We'll see if Faust's Inferno Dragon gameplay can rival that of his opponent's Ardent Toas in their previous set, as Zap comes down to deal with those bats, but now Wall Breaker's in. AQ protected, which is really, really nice. And, you know, Archer Queen starting to see a little bit of a revival, especially in duel mode, once you see what cards have already been played, what Evos are still available. And then, of course, you know, trying to take advantage of that in terms of spells.
And right there, I was a little bit afraid that Morten was going to go the ultra quick cycle miner deck, but instead he's going to be running This is an incredible deck choice from Morten because of who he is going against. This is incredible decksmanship. Oh,
yes,
use it.
Yes, it's still alive 6 years later. AC, did you see both of the little smirks on their face when Morten played that Tesla? It was amazing. Morten plays the Tesla and he got a little smirk going, I bet you didn't expect that, right? Who is playing Tesla right now? Who's playing Lava right now? Well, you're playing Lava right now. And then Faust, conversely, he gets a little bit of smile going, all right, man, this is why you're the GOAT. This is why you're one of the best ever, right? Like, you knew in game 2 I was going to run RG, and in game 3 I'm going to go to the skies, and you were ready for it. Well, that's AQ, Poison, Snowball, Tesla. Sorry.
I mean, it really comes down to, look at the first 2 letters of both of these players' names. SK versus SK. These guys practice against each other. They know what they want to do. And Morten utilizing that significantly better than his opponent. He knows that his opponent wants to go into these Loon-type decks in that game 3.
Beautiful defense there from Morten. Second Tesla down, and Rich letting us know in the chat that this is the deciding game between who will be the points leader on the leaderboard. So just to add a little bit of cherry on top or insult to injury, depending on where you're at, and it's looking like it is going to be Morten right now. I mean, this is a Lava Hound deck with Loon. Anything can happen, but Morten has all the tools in his arsenal to stop it.
Yeah, it's okay. So Faust still deciding to go in with the Lava Hound. That means Morten can apply pressure, go Goblins at the bridge. I mean, it's really just, if he goes Lava, he goes Goblins, bridge, bats low. That's all you have to do on Morten's end. Instead, electing to go in with the Tesla. A lot coming down, but we're going to see a Poison and a Snowball, and it's going to be cleaned up.
Yeah, that is easy money right there. Faust has played Lava Hound more than any other competitor in this entire competition. Morten just calling his number in game 2 and in game 3. Nice high poison here. Morten trying to hold the line, but 857 to 446. We're talking one balloon drop here can turn everything around. Morten needs to end this game, and he needs to end it now. Inferno stays alive. Wallbreaker does bait out the arrows.
It forces out the arrows, but here's the thing. He might not have needed that, and I think you really have to focus on min-maxing in these I mean, in these moments. So I really want to see a replay and just figure out, could he have avoided using the arrows in that scenario?
Yeah, that's a really good call there, AC. You're absolutely right on min-maxing in terms of like what you need to do to win this game right now. Morten going to the back again. Now just needs to get the poison down. And Morten is going to our grand finals against Arden Toas. Gets the reverse sweep, turns things around back to back there for the guy that's been at every World Finals since its inception. Morten does the walk-off win against his teammate in SK.
What a battle in game number 3. Everybody else in the world would have said, hey, my opponent has bats, goblins, miner, wall breakers. I can't do anything. But Faust still defending late into the game. Inferno Dragon predictions just by placing it in the back, knowing that the miner always has to go to the back. The wall breaker is always at the bridge. And if you know your opponent is going to do that, you can start predicting early on. So it was a great adjustment from Faust just to make it a game.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know if it's play of the day worthy, but I will say Morten's decksmanship in this set, absolutely phenomenal. It was a rough start, an incredible turnaround for Faust. I mean, talking about what just happened in his set against Arden, it was a heartbreaker, it was a barn burner, it was all the adjectives that you can think of. But then you get Morten in game number 2. He runs Graveyard Freeze with Inferno. It hasn't worked this entire tournament. And who knew if it worked at all? But for some reason, all these competitors kept running it. This is why. You said it on broadcast, AC. You're looking for that matchup. Then we get a little bit of love from our producers going, hey, Faust has run this deck more than anyone else in the top 8. So what does Morten do? I'm going to counter you. Snowball, Bats, Poison, AQ, Tesla. Nothing but money here for Morten.
I mean, are you kidding me? You're going to use Inferno Tower, and then your opponent's thinking, oh, he used Inferno Tower. There's no building left in the game. It's literally only Bomb Tower or Inferno Tower. And then you're going to whip out the Tesla. Game 3, championships on the line. Well, making it to the championships on the line. Point total on the line. That was so pretty. That's what we've been waiting for. Just dual format is so beautiful because we get to see outplays like this.
Yeah, I know. And I love to see something that has kind of handicapped Morten in the past, talking about his decksmanship, talking about picking certain things and certain moments. And today, at least, Morten has been, this whole weekend, he has been perfectly on the money. Game number 1, basically a mirror matchup. AC saying that those 2 Elixir Spear Goblins versus those 1 Elixir Skeletons were the deciding factor, and it truly did feel like it as you watch that game go on. Faust just hyper aggressive. Then we get into game 2. AC, I'll let you take it because, look, it finally worked out.
That's right. Game number 2, going in with the Skeleton King Graveyard Freeze. And the RGs were dangerous. Faust was doing everything he could. Lumberjack in front, double RG, strong defense, goblins on the graveyard. He was doing a lot of great things. But, I mean, if you're playing this graveyard deck, you just play slow, methodical, get your defenses down. It was a double RG push with Lumberjack, and it just didn't matter because you have the Inferno Tower and you have the freeze. In theory, you should never get overwhelmed. You should be able to defend out. I mean, it's only 5 minutes. You can defend for 5 minutes.
And then we go on to game number 3. Morten doing it once again. Just having the number. You got the pressure with the wall breakers. You got the miner going to the back of the tower. You only have 2 ways to get on top of miners, and that is your own miner, and that is your barbarians. Those are both not ideal situations. If you're Faust, you keep the pressure up with goblins as well. Now you don't know where to use your spells. You can't use them offensively. You got to use them completely defensively. And then if you look, 5 of the cards in Morten's deck looking to deal with air. So a great matchup for him and Faust. Love to see it here. SK versus SK. Still a good day for SK. Still a good day for Faust, getting third place and a lot of money. And yo, Rich, we finally saw it. Graveyard Freeze worked. Morten picking some really good decks.
I mean, the matchup that
Rich, you're muted
all day. Oh,
I muted him
against
because I want to be the predictions champion.
Oh, there we go. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. And look, yeah, we talked about it, right? Wanting that matchup against RG. Morten finally gets it, and then of course the genius deck pick for game 3. And I don't know, so I don't want to confirm, but I believe that also Morten is still working with Julesy on this. So I don't know if that was a Morten pick or if that was a Jules pick. Either way, it was a genius pick. week in game number 3. And it was really fun listening to Josh just break down every single piece, because you know what's going to happen step by step, and Morten just absolutely dissecting his friend and teammate. But you know what? That's what you have to do when you're in this situation. There are no friends when you're trying to make it to World Finals. And Morten, not only does he take one big step closer to a golden ticket in this grand final against Arden Toas, he now completely secures first place for the moment, at least on our leaderboards, and he has more points than 2 of our golden ticket winners in Pedro and Pandora. So just continuing to stack those chips up here on this Sunday.
Yeah, and as we take a look here at our predictions going into the grand finals, it looks like we have a bit of a split once again, though. But Rich, you are now in the minority. It looks like today's been pretty good for me, taking a point there for Arden Toas, but I think I am still tied with Rich or something ridiculous like that. But Rich, why Morten here in the final matchup of the day, unless we get to our super grand finals, in which we will have to put in more predictions? But why are you going Morten in game number 1, or at least match number 1?
Did you just watch what I just watched? You know what I mean?
You mean like, Arden dominating Faust?
Arden was great against Faust, but I thought that was cracks in the armor of Faust. Morten is playing some of the best Clash Royale I think we've seen from him all year. He is really dialed in, and way more dialed in today than he was yesterday. I don't know if he got a good night's sleep. I don't know if he ate his Wheaties this morning. Whatever it is, Morten is completely laser focused. The deck picks are there, which has always been his biggest weakness. The gameplay is there. This is vintage Morten, and it feels like we're talking about, I don't know if he'll win 2 BO3s in a row, but in this BO3, I'm picking the guy.
And he smiles. I love to see it, right? He's usually so serious. He's been to everywhere you can go in this game other than being world champion. So for him, a lot of this is just, you know, it's par for the course. I love to see him smiling. I love to see that attitude. And I agree with you. It's definitely hard to pick Morten. I may or may not be doing it for being predictions champion still, going Arden in this first set. But I do have to say, Morten looked deadly. Arden, though, has been just on a roll. Again, we go back to the bracket that Arden has run through this entire tournament. Ruben, 2-0. Igor, 2-1. Faust, 2-1. These are some of the biggest names in the game. I want to see if he can keep this beautiful run going. AC, you're with me on this. Why are you going Arden?
I mean, we saw it in that replay that just showed right there. It was the Inferno Dragon Graveyard Freeze deck from Arden that really made me a believer, because we know how talented he is. We know he can keep track of cycle and use the right decks and just adapt to the meta. But we've always known, hey, he's going to be aggressive, and that's what he's known for. In this monthly final, we've only seen perfection from him. He's slow, methodical. He knows how to play these win conditions much better than a lot of these other players. And really, just that Inferno Dragon same lane as Tombstone, just every single time, I thought that was so cool. I have to go Arden after watching that game.
Well, Arden certainly feeling good. Look, I think the big thing for Arden when you talk about the confidence factor is that he's already done the necessary work. Right? The golden ticket here certainly gives him all that much more breathing room, but here he finds himself in the grand final, way up on the leaderboards, knowing that from this point forward, his fate is really in his hands. Not just right now, but in the next 2 months, he's put himself in a spot where if he plays at the top of his game, he's going to World Finals one way or the other, and that's got to feel really good.
Arden Toas, SK Morten. Championship game. Let's see who's going to win. If Morten wins this set, it will move on to a second one, but Arden going to do his best to not allow that to happen.
And that's a very important point there, Josh. The double elimination we're playing this weekend, the bracket reset is possible. Arden only needs 1 best-of-3 win. Morten needs 2 because Arden has not lost yet. We'll see if Morten can get that started here, and that is Minor Loon to the right-hand side, and Morten, neither building in hand, gonna have to eat, nope, NATOs to his King Tower.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure just off the bat if he was gonna have NATO or Fireball in the deck. Just gonna be running NATO, and so a decent bit of damage from Arden, but nothing too scary just yet. Morten's last card should be Firecracker. I mean, it should, you should be trying to use Firecracker every set, so I like this deck choice from Morten. And then Arden Toas, never really a fan of Balloon, but maybe he can do some work that others couldn't.
And there we go, finally getting the Firecracker in for some chip damage on the tower, and Morten is most likely to give up a little King Tower activation here as the Musketeer goes and pulls to the middle, and you saw him not really playing it early, finally getting it down, and you'd always love to get at least one, if not two, Firecracker cycles before a King Tower activation, if possible, Josh.
Yeah, that's right. You never, I mean, it's never the end of the world, but especially when you're running a deck like Morten's. We saw it in the game against Faust. Faust was able to activate the King Tower right away with even the drill. So even though it's really rough on him, it's not the end of the world. We kind of expect the King Tower to get activated pretty much immediately.
And the Monk doing some reflection onto the bomb tower. That's going to put some hurt in that defense against the balloon, and Morten does not have to spend his tornado as the loon does go down, but the pressure from Arden here is relentless.
Yeah, this is an exciting push from Arden Toas right here. Arrows coming down, but they're not going to take it completely out. Tower down to 1432, and I think the balloon will get a drop damage. We're just going to have to wait and see, and it does not. So great defense from Morten. I thought for sure that he was going to be in an insurmountable spot, but instead defends quite nicely.
And Arden's certainly not happy with the amount of damage done onto that Musketeer. About 1,000 HP separating these two. Morten continue to try to find a way on the left-hand side. We know how explosive, pun intended, the Firecracker can be on that left-hand lane or in any situation. Once she gets the Evo form, we'll see if Morten can find purchase. For now, though, he has to contend with this Monk-Mortar combination.
Monk's reflection earlier was fantastic. Monk this time not really trying to go for the reflection, just trying to get a little bit of baby damage, and that's what we're going to see. Have to look at the drill, and he finally defends it right there. 1186 to 2066, and this is what you need to do when you're running Loon Miner. Sometimes the Miner ends up being the win condition. Sometimes you have to have the balloon tank for the Miner in order for you to get the correct amount of damage.
And the Monk reflecting the Firecracker off of the tower, so preventing a ton of damage and getting her off the board. Very nicely played with the Monk still. Drill damage will be significant. Bomb tower comes down. Musketeer keeps it off of that mortar on the right-hand side.
Yeah, protecting the mortar right there. Arrows are going to come down, and he has nothing in cycle. This should be game. I don't know how Morten is going to be able to defend it.
NATO pulls everything back here. Arrows takes the Firecracker off. Morten is not back to a building. GG, well played. Arden Toas takes game number one.
I mean, that was just constant pressure right there. The mortars were always getting a ton of value, and you have Firecracker, Ice Spirit, guards, all of them can get taken off the board from the arrows. And so with the constant pressure, I mean, you have Bomb Tower and NATO, so you should always be able to defend those balloons, but there was something about the way he was setting up those pushes where Morten couldn't really hold the correct cards for the correct cycle.
On to game number two, and looking like we might be getting into some graveyard action on both sides once again. Those Zappies gonna give some pause to Morten as he drops his Inferno Dragon.
Skeleton King activating its ability early on. Arrows are going to come down, but the Skeleton King is still going to make it to the tower if Morten doesn't defend. Getting one shot, not a second, but still one shot. And it looks like Morten is running lava. Fireball coming down immediately. Does he have Barbarrel and Cycle? This could be the tower, I mean, almost all the way down. We'll have to see.
RG getting a lot done, and that Barbarian just hanging out. Morten just having to eat that damage and figure out what's coming up next. Arden Toas has won the All-Stars in 2022. Came in first at ESL's Snapdragon Pro Series for North America last year. Queso Cup, second place last year, but has not won a CRL monthly final, and now is just a few seconds away from making that happen.
I mean, going in with the prediction Fireball, you know your opponent, he instantly recognizes the deck that he's supposed to be going against. But here's the thing, technically, I mean, it might not matter. He has the arrows, he has the zap, he can take off these zappies. So we're just gonna have to see. We need the elixir right here. Still a little ways away from the zap coming down, and instead, perfect defense from Arden. Loon almost gets there, but not quite.
And Arden Toas running away with it now. That 207 on the left-hand side in perfect fireball range, so Arden knows he has that tower and has it secured. Now just needs to play defense on this right-hand side. A little surprised by the barb barrel on that left-hand lane, maybe just knowing that Morten doesn't want to spend for it, but that's not going to get the tower down. That seems like a wasted 2 elixir here, Josh.
That's right, but you can kind of get away with that because I mean, it's just kind of weird. You need to take out that tower so you can start to get aggressive. So I get it. It feels like a waste, but really you're just trying to set yourself up to be able to go RG in the pocket.
Barbs to the left-hand side, full lava loon push to the right-hand lane. Not quite to 5 elixir yet, needs that for the arrow zap, does Morten. Now he has it, arrow zap come in, but zappies are right behind it. Inferno Dragon trying to get tanked for if it can. Loon does get 1 drop, but those zappies down low mean GG, well played. Ardentois going to be your July monthly champion, your golden ticket winner, and now back-to-back trips to Clash Royale League World Finals.
He has to feel so good. It's not because of matchups. It's not because of anything else. It's because of his own gameplay. Game 2, everything on the line. Oh, you know, I'm going to play nervous. That's what most people are thinking. Not Arden. He wants to win the game right away, and he wins it based off of his true play style. Getting aggressive, your opponent only has barbs and cycle. I'm going to go prediction fireball at the bridge, and it wins him the game, and it wins him the golden ticket.
And this is a big validation for Ardentois, who was certainly one of maybe the odd man out at World Finals last year, a lesser known quantity, kind of a quieter player, and now going to World Finals 2 years in a row, and not just going 2 years in a row, but going with a monthly final championship this time around certainly validates a lot of how he feels about himself and how he feels he should be viewed overall in the Clash Royale community.
Yeah, he has to garner so much respect right now because it's kind of weird when new cards get introduced and when new metas are introduced. But this one, there was something about it where it doesn't feel like a fluke whatsoever. It feels, he seems to be the only player where it really feels like he's already figured it out. Players are still trying to figure out, oh, what do I want to do in game number 2, game number 3 with deck choices? He's already played the matchups perfectly, and he already has the decks perfected. Now he just needs to keep it together, and we should start to see... I wouldn't be shocked to see him in the top 8 again. I wouldn't be shocked to see him make top 4, make top 3, even win it again based off this performance.
And Morten, you see, certainly frustrated, comes in with a 2nd place, which is something he's certainly done before, but on the same side of things, Morten most likely, barring some craziness, is going to be making a trip to World Finals as well. So certainly a solid run for him overall. But the story of the day, the young man Ardentois, going back-to-back 2022 World Finalist, 2023 World Finalist, and one of the best resume runs through CRL monthly finals we've ever seen.
That's right. Game number 1, we saw Mighty Miner Drill going against the Mortar Loon, and it came down to just an early damage from the Mortar Loon, and just excellent pushes. He finally got Morten out of a cycle where he didn't really have the right responses to the Mortar. Comes down with the ultra fast arrows on top of the guards and the Ice Spirit, takes them all out, clean getaway for the Mortar, and then the game was over just like that.
And going on to game number 2, and you see the Lava Loon call here from Morten. He shut down Lava Loon earlier. And man, this one, Josh, talk me through this one a little bit, because the barbs, obviously, when they're not in the evolved form, easy money for that fireball. What went wrong here for Morten in game 2?
Well, I think you have to look at just how you're supposed to play lava. I don't know if you're allowed to put yourself in opportunities where you only have a barbs as a response. So I think it can come down to Morten maybe not understanding how to correctly play it. Because if your opponent is going to be that quick with the fireball, it just means somewhere along the way you messed up. And so maybe it comes down to he should have got even more aggressive and just tried to go, maybe try to tower trade or something. Ardentois did a fantastic job because he does not have the right responses to a Lava Loon push. He only has the Zappies and the Mother Witch, and both of those get taken out by the Zap arrows. Ardentois has to play that game awkward, and getting an RG Fireball at the bridge I mean, that wasn't even awkward. That was just special.
Very special indeed. And speaking of special, the run Arden Toas put on today as we take a look at the bracket here in just a moment. I mean, just giant after giant after giant going down against Arden Toas. Starts off with our 2020 world champion in Ruben. Then takes down a 2019 world champion in Igor. Then takes down the absolutely on fire Faust, who's another guy who's in the top 3, top 2 over on the leaderboards, and then goes and 2-0s Morten. No bracket reset needed. The grand final, that's a tremendous resume builder. And now we take a look at all the pieces here. Keep in mind, Arden Toas not overall in the leaderboard because he has a golden ticket win. So he just opened up a spot there. Ruben takes a big leap up from 7th into 4th on the back of his really great performance, making it to the monthly final. And now we see Adriel, Samuel Basoto, and Rainbow would have been knocked out of the top 7 had Arden Toas had one of these guys not made it to the world finals, but luckily one of those top players did. Rainbow holding on, and as you've said many times, Josh, Air Surfer just right there at the heels of Rainbow trying to work his way in.
Yeah, it is so close between 4th and 8th. 4th, it feels like, oh, I'm in 4th place and top 7 move on. I should be in a prime position, but it's only 35 points separating the two players. That is incredibly close. This leaderboard race will just get tighter as the months go along.
Let's go ahead and take a look at our 5 of 7 golden ticket winners. A lot more people left to fill in our overall World Finals berths, but at the moment, Mohamed Light, Pandora, Pedro, Mugi, and Arden Toas making our golden tickets, our world finalists. So we have 4 returning world finalists and 1 newbie there in Pedro. Still 2 golden tickets left to give away in August and September, and of course that points race as well. So it's looking up to be a fantastic world finals, especially as those 14 players are joined by 2 players from the China region for our Clash Royale competitive scene for what's going to be a phenomenal show when we finally get there, Josh.
Yeah, it's starting to get to me. It really is. I was thinking about it just a week ago that there's only 3 more months. Everything is coming together, and we're so close to the World Finals. It's ramping up for me. I'm so excited.
And Andrew, Arden Toas ended up taking the day, got it done very, very cleanly. Got to feel good about that one.
Yeah, I mean, that deck, that game 1 deck, right? It counters everything that is good in the meta right now. It is so awesome. I feel like if that deck was played on day 1, we would have seen a lot more of it here today on day 2, because what is Firecracker going to do? What is RG going to do? What kind of pressure can you stop? Like, it's so nice. And then you have the Evoed Mortar there. Arden used it a lot for pressure, offensive pressure, but you also still have that extra little bit of health if you need it. The Monk is there to push back the RG, even the High Musketeers to catch Firecrackers, but they were played in the opposite lane. I love to see that. 1 tile to the right or the left, and it works down the lane that you want to be focusing on. Everything there came together for Arden. I love to see it. It's always tough to see Morten, lose, get 2nd place, but again, you saw how many points he had. He's got 100 more points than I think 5th place, so I think he's okay. I think we'll see Morten at World Finals again, but yeah, man, that was exceptional stuff. And then, like AC said, when you have a card in your deck that can lose early on, so let's say you're playing against Hog Rider and you've only got goblins and 2 elixir in the tank. If you play those goblins on a hog and you get pre-log, the game's over. You cannot put yourself in that situation early on, and that's exactly what Morten did. He showed his hand with Tombstone Inferno. Only thing that's going to be there on the ground is most likely Barbs or Miner, and he gets Barbs, early Fireball. You love to see it. Let's take a look here at the predictions. You and I went with Arden, AC. Rich, you went with Morten, and honestly, it was a good pick there, and I was honestly a little surprised with how Morten kind of got caught off guard, it seemed, in that final game of the day.
Yeah, it does. Again, caught off guard, I think it's a great way to put it. He looked phenomenal all day today and looked out of sorts in that grand final against Arden Toas. So Arden Toas taking the day, and what I don't know is what our overall scores here. My guess is that, taking yesterday and today into account, is that Josh ends up being our new champion, but I have not seen the full tally yet. You, of course, going, oh, you guys tied.
Yes, give me it back. Give me it back. It's never going to change. It's never going to change because I'm going to win again next month. And then you realize you also won something here.
Barely. I don't even. This means nothing to me. It needs.
That's
it needs
what second place always says. Is it means nothing.
It's a paper championship, if you will. Let's go ahead and wrap things up for the weekend. Josh, Arden Toas, you were hot on him from the beginning. He comes out as the golden ticket winner. Thoughts on the young man's performance overall?
Yeah, I think it's just an evolution of his game. I am so impressed what he was able to pull off, and it was all things that I've never been able to say about him before. That was the special part for me. I'm so excited to see his future inside this game, especially if he can bring it to LAN, especially if he can bring it to the World Finals. There's something special cooking for that man.
And Andrew, a monthly final with 4 of our top 7 in points leaders stayed in there and now defending their position. It looks like it's getting harder and harder to unseat these guys. We'll probably be seeing Morten and a few other of those guys in World Finals later this year.
100%. I don't see any of them taking their foot off the gas. If history has shown us anything, it's that Morten, you can beat him, but you can't break him. I'm excited to see him at World Finals. I'm excited for him to keep grinding. And, you know, I picked Faust to be my dark horse golden ticket winner. I think it was dark horse. I don't know if it was favored, but it was one of the two, and he did great. He ended up in 3rd place. Arden, another one of my favorite players out there, putting all things together. Evos, I think, were a big success in terms of our broadcast. It was super fun. Games were never over. You actually couldn't call games early anymore, even if I did it a handful of times. So yeah, all things working great for CRL here, moving in the right direction, getting closer and closer to World Finals, and that lineup of World Finals, Rich, is getting real stacked.
That's right. Only 2 more months remaining during the regular season in Clash Royale League. 2 more golden tickets on the line. You can start your push right now. Make it to the top 1,000 in Path of Legends. Grind through that Swiss bracket. Hit the group stage. Maybe you're right here next month with the 3 of us talking about you as you push for a golden ticket. For Joshua, AC, Sharon, for Andrew Guy, for the entire production team, I'm Rich Slayton. We'll see you back here next month for Clash Royale League.
And that firecracker from Faust shot from like a different game and still connected to the tower. 1402, 804. Hog Rider in again. Perfectly timed E-Spirit and Fisherman there for Arden. Ends up taking the tower.
Wow, Arden Toas all the way to the golden ticket final.
He's going to be running. This is an incredible deck choice from Morten because of who he is going against. This is incredible dexmanship. Oh,
yes.
Use it.
Yes, it's still. So you're absolutely right on min-maxing in terms of like what you need to do to win this game right now. Morten going to the back again. Now just needs to get the poison down. And Morten is going to our grand finals against Arden Toas.
Loon does get 1 drop, but those zappies down low mean GG. Well played. Arden Toas going to be your July monthly champion, your golden ticket winner, and now back-to-back trips to Clash Royale League World Finals.
He has to feel so good. It's not because of matchups. It's not because of anything else. It's because of his own gameplay.